Hand of the Day.
Hey guys, it's Alec, Torelli, and welcome back to another episode of the Hand of the Day. Today's hand features an awesome one that I played in Poker Night in America in Pittsburgh. Just was there for a recent high-stakes cash game. Awesome event, and I came out a winner both days. I'm really excited about that. Proud of some things, but this hand is an example of a mistake I made, and this was sort of a reoccurring theme in my session. I just felt like slightly off my game, and like I just wasn't performing my A game. I just didn't have that super laser focus I was used to, and this is an example of one where I think I could have done a little better and I let one slip, but it's definitely a learning lesson. I think that the hands that you lose, you learn so much more from than the hands that you win, so I thought I'd share an experience with you guys that I had, and a hand that I could have done a little better. Let's check it out. I have a pretty good position in the game. I just sat down on the session. I'm playing. I commentated the whole beginning of the day, and I had studied and reviewed a lot of the players that I was playing with, so I knew what to expect. I felt like I was really prepared. I did my homework, and I was ready to be a winner in the game. Following hand comes up where there's an open on the button from David Eldridge, who's a very aggressive, tricky, solid player in the game. He's definitely super action, one of the loosest players in the game, and he's capable of anything at any time. I knew this because I had done the commentary earlier in the day and I was watching him play and absolutely run over the table, and I'd also watched him on past streams, so I really felt like I had a good idea of how he played, and I was prepared for anything against him. I go ahead and 3-bet from the big blind with ace-jack offsuit. Pretty standard 3-bet, especially against a really loose open. I made it big on 1200 or so on the bigger side to really punish him and cut down on his implied odds because we are really deep stacked, and I expected a call here a lot of the time. I know it's tough to play this hand out of position, but I just think that 3-betting is better than calling, and certainly I can't fold against such a loose button opener like Eldridge. He goes ahead and calls, which I expect him to do with pretty much every hand he's opening with. Maybe he's going to fold something like Queen 5 offsuit, but any two suited cards he's in, any one gapper he's in, and I just feel like he's going to be calling me a lot here. So he goes ahead and calls. We go heads up to the flop. Flop comes ace deuce 3 rainbow. A great flop for me, but very, very tricky to play this hand because any 4 or 5 is a really a scare card. It's also hard for me to win 3 streets of value here. Against Eldridge, who's liable to have anything, something even as weak as 3-5, for example, there's definitely some value to be won. He's not going to let go of any of these hands on the flop. He's going to do something like float me, call, take one off, see what happens. Maybe he has a backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. So I feel like he's going to be in there a lot. The question is, how do I put more money in the pot when I have the best hand? What's the best way to continue? I go ahead and bet here. I think this makes the hand easier to play for me. But more importantly than that, there's just so many hands that I could get value from that are worse than mine. He's going to be calling me pre-flop with any ace-x suited, which is worse than mine, and he might even float the flop with something like any 4 or any 5 in his hand. He's also going to be calling once with any pair, and he's liable to have 3s and deuces in his range pre-flop. He could have something like jack 3 suited for what I know and what I expected about his game. So I definitely expect him to be calling this flop a lot. I don't think he's going to just be calling pre-flop and folding a lot of the time when he hits any equity. So I go ahead and bet 1300. About half the pot. I would bet this way with all my air. It's also good to be able to balance my range and bet with stronger hands as well. And so he called, and we go heads up to the turn, which is a 9. And here I thought for a while. The pot's getting big. It's about 4,500, 5,000 now. And, you know, we got 10 or 12,000 left. So we pretty much have 2-to-1 stack to pot ratio, and it's a tricky spot to play. I really had to ask myself, is it possible that I bet 3 times for value here and he picks me off with a worse hand? Is he going to hero call me with something like pocket 4s, pocket 5s, or a 3 and continue calling, or ace-x suited, or is he going to fold those hands by the river? So if he's going to fold to a bet on the turn and a shove on the river, it's probably better to check one street. The other thing I had to really weigh here is what percentage of the time is he floating me on the flop with any 4x or 5x hand in his range, or what percentage of the time is he calling with a weak 1-pair hand like a 3 and going to turn that into a bluff if I check, trying to get me to fold two kings, two queens, or maybe even ace-x by the river. I just felt like there was more probability that the latter was happening, that he was going to either turn a hand into a bluff or that he was floating me, than it was that I got two streets of value by betting with my hand. So I opted to check here. I thought about it for a while, but I was formulating my entire plan for the hand on the turn in this moment. This is really what I was debating, and I think this is a crucial spot in the hand. You really got to sort of, you're at a crossroads, and you got to say to yourself, okay, which way is better to earn more money? And I just thought that checking was a better line, especially against someone like Eldridge, who we didn't have a lot of history, and it was unlikely to think that, I was going to make a huge barrel bluff on him. It was more likely that I felt like he was going to use his aggressive tactics, and the fact that we didn't have any history to try and run a big bluff on me. So I opted to check. He bet 2,200, which is a pretty small bet here. It forces me to fold a lot of hands, and it really sets up the play for a big river bet on his part if he wants to continue with a bluff. So I go ahead and call here. I think it's a pretty standard check call on the turn. Of course, I beat a lot of hands, and I'm just kind of reevaluating on the river. Of course, it's easier for me if he checks the river because I pretty much always win. But at the same time, there's some part of me that maybe hopes he bets the river because, that he could still be bluffing. So the river comes a 5, which is a pretty terrible card for me. A lot of hands are going to check, and he's never going to bet a worse hand for value. And a lot of his bluffs, like his 4x hands, now got there and improved to a straight. So of course he's going to value bet all those. My range is also very, very defined. It's very obvious, I think, at this point that I have a one pair type hand, something like ace king, ace queen, ace jack. I pretty much never have two pair or a set here because I don't really 3-bet with that many hands that make two pair or a set or a straight on this board and play the hand this way post flop. So it's really likely that I have what I have, and the fact that he knows that and he's a good enough player to hand read really puts me in a precarious spot. I'm really left playing a guessing game here and asking myself, is he going to be bluffing me, or is he just always betting any hand better than one pair for value? I definitely think he's always betting any hand better than one pair for value. And when he decides to shove on this river, I really just have to ask myself, are there enough hands that he's bluffing with that offset the times that he has better than one pair? Is there enough combinations of bluffs in his range that I could justifiably call here? So the first thing I was considering is, well, I'm getting 2-to-1 odds, so I only have to be right about 33% of the time, and that's not that much. The river scared me a lot because I felt like all his 4x combos now got there, but if he could have 4x, something like king 4 suited, he could also have something like king 5 suited and be turning that into a bluff on the river. The fact that he's good enough to bet with one pair and turn it into a bluff, even something like 5-6 or 5-7, means that there's a decent amount of bluffs in his range. He also might be turning something like jack 3 suited into a bluff, betting the turn, realizing when he's called that his hand is no good, and now representing the straight on the river. For some reason, I kind of pieced all this together, and combined with the fact that I'd done a lot of research on Eldridge, I knew a lot about how he played, I felt like he was setting me up for this the entire time, which is why I gave him the rope on the turn. And on the river at the end, I don't really know what happened. I just folded, even though I felt like, in retrospect, I feel like analyzing it now and going through the numbers, and I've crunched all the numbers on this hand, I just feel like there's enough combinations of hands that I could justify calling with. But for some reason, I folded the winner. He showed me king 10 offsuit, which gives even more credence to calling, because if he's going to be floating me with absolutely no equity on the flop, then pretty much his entire range is liable to be in this hand, which means there's a lot more combinations of bluffs he could have. So I feel like I had all the logic right, and I feel like I knew what to do, and for some reason I just didn't execute. I'm sure you guys can relate to this feeling a lot. It happens to the best of us, and so it's one of those things that you just got to pull back from. You got to realize in the moment, hey, I'm human. I made a mistake. I thought through it right, and maybe I got to the right conclusion. I just didn't execute, or maybe, I don't know, I just didn't pull the trigger. So anyway, that happens sometimes in poker, but the key is, you got to just be aware of the fact that you can't play perfect all the time, and you can't put unrealistic expectations on yourself. If you look at other sports, even the best in the world hit balls into the net, they miss layups, and it's how you recover from it that really defines you in these sessions. So I was proud that I didn't tilt after the hand, and I felt like I kept my composure, and I tried my best to play well, but some of the time, you just don't have all the tools at your disposal to play your absolute best every single time you sit down at the table. So I felt like I was a little off my game. I still tried my best, and I still found like I felt some creative spots, and I came out on a winner both days. So I'm really proud of how I recovered, but I think there's a lot to be learned from the times that you're off your game or the times that you feel like you make mistakes. This is an example of one, and I hope you took something from it. I think it's a really interesting hand. For more about this hand, definitely check out my blog, alectorelli.com. I post a lot of information about this hand and how to recover from those times when you just feel like a little bit off, and how to get back on your game on your feet as fast as possible. All right, that's it. Send me your hands if you want me to review them, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
The hand of the day.